Okay, so continuing our discussion on auditing in biopharma. Nice to see you again, Jaap.
Hi, James.
And where we got to last time was talking about research, and we also explained the way of thinking that internal auditors have between objectives, risks, controls and results, and the controls not being controls in a negative way, but more like the brakes on a car to make you go faster. Yeah, we're going to talk about development today. Please, off you go. What would you like to say about the development area?
So development is the function that takes the innovation from research to market. It's as simple as that. Actually, it's not simple, but it's a very simple concept of taking the innovation into the market. And in the pharmaceutical industry, that is actually quite a long process. In the R&D function, it's the most costly process as well. And there is a lot of resourcefulness needed to actually take innovation all the way to the end. And this starts already with the initial decision making about what comes from research and what are we going to take to market, because it's such an expensive and long process. The development people need to make smart choices about the products or the molecules that they're going to invest money in. So the first one is really about the resource allocation and portfolio management. This is in essence, what are the products that we accept from research? And there's a lot of decision-making methodology all along the development process that needs to be very robust, and where internal audit can provide assurance on whether these decision-making processes make sure that unviable molecules are not taken all the way to the end of development in order not to waste money, and that we only invest money that actually will bring value to patients. The other element that makes development so expensive is regulatory compliance. We are in the space of making sure that a drug works, but also making sure that the drug is safe. And the further we get in the development of a molecule, the more people will be involved as patients on which we test drugs. And so the safety regulations are very, very heavy, not just to make sure that the drug works, but in particular that the patients stay safe. Then the third element is, and this is relevant in the late stage of development, when we're getting closer to going to market, we now have quite a large number of patients involved in clinical trials. And there's a lot of scientific ethics that we need to consider towards patients, but also towards payers, to make sure that clinical trials are not used as early launches before the organization has a marketing authorization. And of course, this is very important to maintain trust in the organization.
Very good. And there's a few interesting things there in what you said. You know, the difficulty, and we can see this now with COVID, of genuinely finding something that is going to hit that spot precisely means you have to try a lot of things and a number of things fail. I don't know what the statistics are now, but you could easily have 10 drugs going into development and only one candidate coming out at the end as viable. And so, as you said, internal audit's role in double checking and critiquing the evidence for the decision to go into development is crucial. And it's a really useful tool for executives to say, I'm sure my scientists and my business people have done a fantastic job on this, but can you double check things to make sure that there isn't a mistake here? And then similarly, when you talk about the clinical practices, it's vital to understand that internal audit would not simply repeat the work of good clinical practice activities. It would really work in partnership with those functions to see, for example, whether there might be a little blind spot somewhere that they've missed, and to help them to improve. And one of the things I want to emphasize to everybody familiar with this, but maybe less familiar with this, is, you know, the levels of excellence that you'll find in the pharmaceuticals industry are really incredible nowadays. You know, if you have a drug that's in trial and there is one adverse event that happens, that will be reported within 24 hours to relevant authorities, no matter where it happens all over the world. An internal audit can play a role in doing that as well. What other things, Jaap, do you think is important for people to understand in terms of why auditing in development is such an interesting area?
Well, when people think about development, they often think about good clinical practices and quality management. And there's in the pharma industry usually a complete function called quality that makes sure that clinical practices are followed by the letter. And internal audit can look at that function as a second line of defense type of function on which reliance can be placed. I would even go as far as has to be placed, because quality is such a specific area where failure rates have to be very low. But still, the second line function can be also audited on its effectiveness before placing too much reliance on the function. So that's, again, more a traditional way of looking at internal audit. Making sure that the second line is effective is, of course, crucial.
And anything you wanted to say on the work to make sure that clinical trials are not disguised launches? Because again, I think there's some important work pharma can do, the audit team can do there.
Well, as we move towards the end of the development stage, and the development and the marketing people are in close collaboration to make sure that the launches will be successful, there is, of course, a temptation to already get patients on the drug before having a market authorization. And so the need to limit the number of patients to the number that is necessary for science and not for launching is critical. So the clinical studies should not be used for recruiting patients too early.
And one of the things you're highlighting there, Jaap, when people think about internal auditing, is you've got scientists and doctors who genuinely want drugs to be valuable. You've got quality functions, as you said, who want to make sure that those doctors and scientists do things in accordance with the regulatory standards, which make sure that we're all safe and that what's created is genuinely working and nobody's going to get unintended side effects that we've not been aware of. And then, as you said, we as internal audit are like an extra layer of safety, an extra tool for the board of directors and for management to use to say, let's just double check particular crucial details, like, as you said, the way that the size of trials is done, to make sure that we've got that right, because we know that could backfire if we make an inappropriate decision, backfire both in terms of reputation and, of course, in terms of side effects that we wouldn't want. So great, Jaap. That's been really helpful talking about.
Maybe one more comment.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to make sure that management will not say to internal audit that we're second guessing their decisions. It is absolutely crucial that the audit team has members in the team that know a lot more about how to develop drugs, or, by the way, research new molecules, that the team has the skills and the competences to actually make informed inquiries about those and actually understand the risks associated with the strategies put in place. So there's a strong people element here as well that needs attention.
You're right, yeah, but I'm glad you've mentioned it. I know you had your doctors, qualified people. I had people who were qualified scientists and doctors as well in my audit team. The skills that you need for a pharmaceuticals internal audit team go far beyond just traditional internal auditors. You need a combination of science and clinical based people together with people who've got a strong internal audit background.
Yep.
Any other comments on that, Jaap?
Nope.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Well, we'll stop there and we'll see you again for another video. Thanks again, Jaap. Bye-bye.
Thank you, James. Bye-bye.
Bye.